Hello everyone, and welcome to the December 11th, 2016 edition of the Astrology News Report. I'm your intrepid host, Ron Berger. In this segment, we are taking a look at a special upcoming planetary pattern and what it implies for your personal astrology chart. Starting on December 11th, and for nearly 6 weeks until January 19th, Mars is transiting in sidereal Aquarius. This puts the planet of action and fast results in the sign of community involvement and social revolution. Aquarius is something of an idealist, wanting a better world for everyone. So this combination sounds like something liberal-minded people can get behind. The social revolutionaries will have something to cheer about as well. But Mars is not alone in Aquarius, and this is where things get complicated. Already transiting in this sign are Ketu, Vedic astrology's name for one of the eclipse points, and Neptune. Both of these two significators are slow-moving and have been closely associated in the middle of Aquarius since last summer. Both Ketu and Neptune have a utopian side to them. Ketu, as a spiritual significator, stands for that which is transcendent. Neptune, as the planet of dreams, can also, at best, represent something ideal. But these two significators have a downside as well. Being an eclipse point, Ketu can obscure, in other words, create confusion, even chaos. Neptune, the planet of the irrational, is the planet of illusions, delusion, and even deception. Now, add in the energy of the action planet, Mars. The downside of Mars is violence. So, this is starting to sound not so great. The problem is to get this three-way planetary combination to manifest its more positive side. Therefore, wherever it is transiting in your own personal chart, you are challenged to manifest action that combines with idealism to make the world a better place. Failing that, you could get anything from irresponsible action to outright violence due to misunderstanding and confusion. The energy pattern of Mars plus Ketu plus Neptune becomes more intense as the three-way conjunction becomes more exact, peaking during the week of Christmas to New Year's. So now I'll go through the zodiac and describe some of the potential outcomes for each of the rising signs. Again, this is the sidereal zodiac. If you are using a Western astrology chart, you have to subtract 24 degrees to get to the correct zodiacal sign. If you are Aries rising, the Mars transit in Aquarius will affect your 11th house, the house of goals and ambitions. The action planet in this part of your chart contributes useful energy for pushing you towards more achievements. Ketu and Neptune can add in the potential for altruistic goals that benefit your friends and associates. But the downside from Neptune and Ketu adds an element of uncertainty to the actions prompted by Mars. So it's important to clearly formulate what your objective will be so you can put this energy pattern to good use. Thus, Aries folks could harness the 11th house Mars desire for accomplishing something. Add that to the Neptune-Ketu idealism and join up with others for some worthy cause. For Taurus rising people, Mars with Neptune and Ketu are transiting in their 10th house, the house of deeds in the community, career and professional activities, status and reputation. Here, Mars gives you energy to work hard at your business, to take action in your professional pursuits, and gives you the courage to initiate a new project. Ketu generates dissatisfaction with the status quo. Neptune contributes imagination, but also delusion. Additionally, the 10th is the house of superiors and the authorities, in other words, your boss and the government. Mars is the planet of combat. Neptune and Ketu can make a kind of fog of war atmosphere. So you have to be careful of getting carried away, getting too aggressive, and thus risking conflict with your superiors or running afoul of government officials. For Gemini rising, Mars transiting in Aquarius puts it in your 9th house, the house of destiny, good fortune, higher education, religion, father, guru, meritorious deeds, and long-distance travel. Mars is an action planet, so going on a journey would be appropriate. Mars in this sector of your chart will compel you to promote your own beliefs, but that includes fighting against anyone else whose beliefs don't agree with yours. The planet of action in the house of meritorious deeds, especially in Aquarius, a sign that wants community progress, inclines you to be helpful to others. The addition of Neptune and Ketu adds the potential for self-sacrificing humanitarian actions. Or you could get this completely wrong, such as misrepresenting or misinterpreting the teachings, and despite your zeal, end up receiving the wrath of your guru or some other form of retribution. For Cancer rising people, Mars is transiting in your 8th house, the house of partners' wealth, financial arrangements with others, secret actions, chronic problems, scandal, and humiliation. The planet of aggression is unwelcome in this part of the chart. Careful of giving in to impulse for an indulgence that turns out to be regrettable. Aquarius does have a selfish side, and Mars here tries to manipulate things to work to your financial advantage. But with Neptune's capacity for deception combined with Ketu's past karma, financial involvements could become a source of scandal and humiliation. Mars is also the planet of infections, injury, and surgery. The 8th house is the house of chronic health issues. Neptune can give a wrong diagnosis, and Ketu makes the problem even more pernicious. Mars will be transiting in the 7th house for Leo rising charts, the house of one-on-one relationships, in other words, spouse or significant other, and also business partner, clients, and deals in distant places. Mars is generally problematic for relationships when it transits through the 7th house. There's more likelihood for impatience, angry outbursts, attacks, and even accidents. Neptune and Ketu add the element of mystery. You probably won't know what you said or did, or why the other person is being so obnoxious. The 7th house is the house of the direct enemy. Mars powers up the house it transits in. So, for Leo rising people, it is imperative to stay away from any one-on-one conflict. And with Neptune and Ketu here, the outcome will likely be something you didn't anticipate. If you are a Virgo rising person, Mars will be transiting through your 6th house, affecting your health, employment situation, relationship with coworkers, and ability to solve problems. A natural malefic, like Mars, transiting through the 6th house, is considered useful for defeating enemies, overcoming obstacles, solving problems, and so on. But Mars is the planet of infections, inflammations, injury, and accident, and this is your 6th house of health. So careful in that department. Neptune and Ketu make the health problem mysterious and hard to diagnose. Best to get a second and third opinion. The planet of combat in the house of co-workers and employees indicates potential for conflicts with those people. Adding in Neptune, the planet of illusions, and Ketu, the significator of the unseen, and there's the additional problem of confusion and deception. For Libra rising people, Mars transiting in Aquarius puts it in your 5th house, and therefore affecting your relationship with your lover and or child. Mars is passionate in love, but in the detached intellectual sign Aquarius, the heat cools off somewhat. Neptune and Ketu introduce an almost mystical fairyland approach to romance, but the downside is not seeing the situation clearly. Your advances are mistaken for something else. The 5th house is also the house of intelligence and creativity. Mars, the action planet, suggests some new creative project. Neptune adds imagination. Ketu brings its brand of idealization. The result could be the start of an endeavor that has broad social ambitions. However, be careful that you aren't being misled by your own fantasies. Mars will be transiting in the 4th house for Scorpio charts. The house of contentment and domestic harmony is not a favorable place for the planet of aggression. Everything works well, but only so long as there is no disagreement or opposition from others in your household. The Mars need for action combining with Neptune's lack of realism and Ketu's dissatisfaction can make the home front a frightful mess during this time. Unfortunate that it is the holiday season, too. Mars, planet of combat, in your 4th house of mother, along with Neptune and Ketu, suggests a misunderstanding with its roots in the past that can easily degenerate into quarrel and fighting. Sagittarius rising people will experience Mars affecting their 3rd house. This is considered to be a favorable transit. It's the planet of action in the house of self-efforts, the do-it planet in the house of skills and talents. Best to have something that needs doing that puts your skills to use. The social idealism of Aquarius with Neptune and Ketu suggests your actions will be well-intended. Nonetheless, there is still the danger that Neptune and Ketu will cause you to misjudge the situation. The tendency is to go off half-cocked. Your efforts are wasted or wind up not being appreciated, and you risk making a fool of yourself. For a Capricorn rising chart, Mars will transit the 2nd house of personal finances, materiality, family, and speech. The planet of aggression in the 2nd house indicates harsh speech. Nor is the planet of combat a friendly planet for the house of family relations. Neptune, as the planet of confusion, doesn't make the family situation any easier. Mars can be proactive for new developments in earning money, but simultaneously can boost expenditure because this is the planet of action in the house of material belongings. Neptune makes your speech idealistic, but simultaneously open to misinterpretation and so confusing to others. Ketu, as the significator of the past, combined with Mars, produces situations where you find yourself defending or disputing what was said in the past. If you are an Aquarius rising person, the Mars transit will affect you very directly by transiting in your 1st house of self. This is an energizing transit. Mars likes physical actions, so it's best to have projects to do. Mars is combative when challenged, and even though Aquarius is normally averse to combat, this is a transit that is strongly inclined to want things your way. Mars combined with visionary Neptune and Ketu means your Aquarius social idealism needs to have an outlet. So, best to stick with people who already agree with what you want to accomplish. When transiting through your ascendant, Mars makes you ambitious, impatient, and subject to your impulses. Neptune and Ketu distort the Mars drive for action, so be careful you don't end up with unintended consequences. And finally, Pisces rising people will experience Mars transiting in the 12th house, the house of hidden things, the unknown, which includes unknown people, unknown places, as well as the subconscious. Mars is the planet of attack, and when transiting in the 12th house signifies hidden attack. In other words, somebody making a move against you from behind your back. Even if there is no physical threat, Mars here will produce fear of the potential, in other words, anxiety. Neptune, planet of fantasy, only increases the paranoia. Ketu suggests some unresolved past karma. This is the house of loss and expense, so watch out that the Mars hastiness combined with Neptune's confusion doesn't impel you to do something you'll regret. On the positive side, Mars, as the planet of action, in the house of humanitarian acts, along with idealistic Neptune and Ketu, may prompt you to volunteer to try to save somebody, or save the world. On a more general note, what can we expect from the Mars-Neptune-Ketu combination in terms of world events? Overall, this planetary setup, especially when it is near exact around the Christmas and New Year's holidays, is rather unfavorable. Planet of force combines with planet of deception, combines with significator of past karma. Sounds a bit ominous. By way of example, we have the effects on the chart of the USA. Since the USA chart has Sagittarius as the ascendant sign, the Mars-Neptune-Ketu conjunction occurs in the 3rd house. As the house of desires and efforts, this suggests energy for starting some kind of action, but simultaneously indicates things don't get off to a good start, and thus leading to unintended consequences. The 3rd house is the house of neighbors, meaning Mexico and Canada or even Cuba, so the problem may land in that area. The 3rd house is communications, which for a country's chart is the house of the media. Mars combined with Ketu and Neptune can manifest as a news item addressing humanitarian concerns, or just as easily give us some kind of aggressive fake news. The 3rd house of a country's chart is travel within the country. This is, after all, the holiday season when we go visit others. Mars is the signifier of accidents. Neptune makes things worse by adding in an element of miscalculation. So, overall, this doesn't sound so good. On January 19th, Mars moves on in the zodiac, leaving Aquarius, and the danger period is over. Okay, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for visiting astrologynewsreport.com. I'll be posting updates during the week, as usual, on Twitter @AstroNewsReport.